imagine, like most food service concepts, it was when the pandemic first hit in March, and then in April, it was very difficult times. I think for us, as with many, there was a lot of pivoting to move very quickly. And fortunately for us, we had made a pretty robust investment in technology for the almost year before the pandemic hit. So when it did, we had that platform. But we've been very fortunate in terms of how well the concept has rebounded, specifically because we were a majority dine-in concept, and now we are a majority off-premise concept. But now we still are returning to what I would call pre-pandemic sales levels, which we feel very blessed between the investments we've made, the team we have, and our franchisees and their team members have really allowed us to weather the storm very, very well.
And so speaking of the investment in technology, how did you use this opportunity during the pandemic to invest in digital innovations even more so than you had in the past?
So I think, with technology, it really was foresight of the team and the franchisees to invest and beginning investing, upgrading our platform in 2019. We had a platform that had been doing okay for us, but we wanted to dramatically upgrade that, both the user experience as well as the loyalty program itself. So we had been on that journey for a good 9 months, but I think it wasn't as much the investment in dollars since the pandemic started, but it was how do we leverage that new platform that enabled us to do different things in the pandemic that has allowed us to thrive. So specifically, probably the one that stands out at the most is our ability to stand up curbside delivery through that platform. And now it represents a very significant portion of our sales versus where it was just a handful of franchisees with the best practice that we were exploring. We moved quickly to stand this up on 300 plus restaurants within a 2-week time frame. And now it's a double-digit representation of our mix. So,
wow, it's definitely quite a pivot there. And I also saw that you launched your new loyalty app right before everything went crazy in early spring. Did you change any features or operations of the app or loyalty program over the past 9 months, or how has that evolved?
pretty dramatically. We invested quite a bit in research and talking with guests as well as our operators on how we could allow that to function much better. I would tell you we had a lot of challenges with our prior platform, as everybody does with technology, but the new platform on most of our operational metrics is dramatically outperforming. The guest reaction has been very favorable. We've architected it differently. Something specific to that is the way we have our Choose To selected is far more streamlined. Rapid reorder also far more streamlined. But on top of that, the loyalty program has become much more robust. It's more transparent. We were more on a surprise and delight platform, and now we're moving more to what would be modeling after best practices of some of the biggest industry names. And all that has been very well received, and our membership has skyrocketed to many, many times over what it was pre-pandemic to where we are now today. And that's a huge asset for us.
Mm-hmm. And so you say that you moved kind of from that surprise and delight. So how would you describe kind of how you engage with customers on the loyalty app now?
So it was more of, if you visited us so many times, a reward would show up. We really wouldn't tell you how or when or why. And now it's far more, if you spend a certain amount, you get a certain amount. And then there's rewards that we surprise and delight on top. And it's very transparent in terms of how you earn certain rewards and the levels of rewards. And so I think that has garnered quite a bit of appreciation. And even now, having this, we're able to do even more unique things. We literally last week just launched a tea pass, which is a subscription model to our world famous tea. And so, early days, but we're really excited about that as well. Again, that is clearly enabled by this new digital platform.
And let's talk about a little bit what you mentioned before, tableside. So when is that rolling out, and how is that going to work?
So we haven't set a true rollout date yet. I believe it will be early 2021, but to take a step back to the insight. So that was again, something like curbside that was in the consideration set and on the roadmap, if you will, pre-pandemic, mostly because we are a lunch concept and a very popular lunch concept. And so there would be a line at noon. I've heard from many guests, boy, I love McAlister's, but I'm not going to go there at noon because I don't want to wait. And so the insight there was, how do we accelerate that? How do we become more accessible to those guests? And so being able to come in, sit down, and order from the table seemed like a really good idea. So we were moving forward with that. Well, now fast forward to today in a pandemic era. Well, people don't want to have as much interaction. They don't want to touch. They want you touching their credit card. They don't want to touch the screen. They'd rather not stand in a line. So now that order mode becomes even more relevant. And the early results from guests and operators was a resounding positive. So we're looking at a Q1 rollout of that. And I think it's a great time because, our dine-in sales are down like everybody's are. Fortunately for us, we've been able to replace all of that with off-premise. So, but we do believe, and I believe, that dine-in will come back. It still is a significant portion of our business, much lower than it once was. But I do believe as we roll through the pandemic, that will come back. People will want to go to restaurants again, and we will be there and be able to offer this as one of many of our ways in terms of being able to offer accessibility to the guest.
So how do you feel at this, when you've created this sort of baseline of customer engagement through these digital innovations? How did McAlister's Deli stand out in this regard?
Well, I think the number of order modes that we stood up in a short period of time is really what stands out. And I think a lot of people have had some of these order modes prior to. We did not at scale. So I think that's one part of it. I think the other part of it that I think going forward is, because I think you're kind of insinuating, and I tend to agree, that these are now becoming table stakes for brands. It's now getting that adoption. So I can tell you, even within our building, there's many brands that stood up curbside, but we stood out in terms of the execution of that. And so I think it's not just making it available, it's getting that adoption. And so when I look at things like tableside as in particular, that's great. We are not first. I know several other large brands who have launched that prior. For us, I think there's two things to it. One is we are a dine-in concept, or we were, I should say. It's still a major component and a big part of our brand experience. We've had table service for 30 years. So for us, it's a natural extension. For others, it may be, well, that's really nice to do, but that wasn't part of my service mode to begin with, so it doesn't really get the usage. So the reason I say that is it's really then not just that you stood it up, but how many people are going to use it. And so even when I look at the digital platform, the usage of that platform or anything digital for us has tripled or quadrupled. And it's now then, how do you double that on top of that and make it the majority of the people are engaged in it? And I think, we're well above industry benchmarks now in a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. But now, how do you take it to the next level and continue to push that level of engagement with guests so they actually use it? I know a lot of articles and news is just about, hey, we launched it. Great. And then what? How many of your guests are using it? So I think for us going forward, there's definitely going to be the evolution of curbside and how we put in new features and how guests, we know when guests are there, and making it more operationally simple to execute. But I think it also then goes to that adoption and focusing on getting people to use it, because it's still the minority of guests for us, although rapidly growing.
Mm-hmm. And it's about it's about that usability and the execution, not just saying that you have it.
Yes, optimization and proliferation, if you will, of that within our guest base.